This is literally an incredible chapter, like no joke. Everyone wanted this or that to happen, but you get everything you've wanted and more in like 20 pages or some shit. And it is so info-filled, very progressive. There is a lot of stuff going on. We're getting a lot of answers for our questions, and everything has just gone from 0 to 100 real fucking quick, like super quick. It's incredible. The very first thing I want to talk about is the Furuta situation. Furuta, dragon, humans turning into ghouls, sentient Kagane beings, etc. Because there is a lot here. This is probably the most information-heavy scenario in the chapter. We're getting a lot of answers. Ishida has finally kind of brought together the walls to his foundation. He's kind of built everything up really nicely in this chapter and explained it, for the most part, really well, if the translations are correct, obviously. Kaneki and Yuri find out that Furuta is not actually live streaming. It's pre-recorded, right? So it's not live or anything like that. With that being said, he goes on to showcase, on the big screen, mind you, the Japanese defense force fighting these sentient Kagane beings. Ultimately, they shred through them, they destroy them, but the whole virus situation kicks into gear. From what it seems like, Ishida played emphasis on the blood of the sentient Kagane beings traversing over to the Japanese defense force, the military, and thus turning them into ghouls, basically, or kicking off the ROS disease at a extremely aggressive rate. Now, this is important because I want to touch on this. A lot of people thought airborne. I thought airborne, but a lot of people mix the airborne situation with the fungi parasitic event, if you will, which necessarily could still be the case. However, I don't think it's as airborne as we thought it was, because when you look at this caliber, when you look at the scale of everything that's happening right now, and the first quote-unquote wave of people to be turned into ghouls or show symptoms of ROS disease, they're very far and few between. Some people are still lingering. Some people are still struggling to turn into ghouls, and other people have turned almost instantly or very, very quickly from the people we've seen on the street eating other humans. Now, if this was an airborne virus, there would be, in my opinion, a lot more fucking people turning into ghouls. If this was just lingering in the air like a disease or a virus, like I was saying, it would smash people, and there would be mass quarantine, and there'd be a lot more panic than this. I understand there's a fucking massive monstrosity kind of in the sky, you know what I mean? Dragon just chilling there and all these monsters on the ground, and people are still freaking out trying to comprehend what's going on. But if there was some sort of airborne virus, I'm sure the CCG or anyone else would jump on it immediately. But at this point, I think they've kind of narrowed down the whole situation. It's not airborne by any means, but I think it's blood contact, you know, HIV, if you will, where if any sort of blood from dragon or the sentient Kagane beings kind of come in contact with what I assume to be said skin, or even clothes maybe, and seeps through the clothes onto the skin, you're fucked. That somehow is going to completely increase and aggravate the RT cells that are already in the human body, thus ROS disease. Big tumor structures coming out the face, turning into ghouls, etc, etc. That's my interpretation of it, and I think that's kind of what Ishida is trying to show emphasis on this chapter, focusing more so on the sentient Kagane blood that the military just recently shot up, and then that kind of jumping all the way onto their clothes, and then them immediately dropping down and suffering from the ROS disease. I think it's pretty close, per se, but we'll wait and see. Furuta then goes on to expand on the situation, give us more insight and closure for what dragon actually is, and this was clever. I gotta give props to Ishida. I understand, you know, he's a great writer, but this was clever, and I necessarily didn't expect this, and I don't think anyone would, because it's so bizarre out there, you know what I mean? But dragon, in Furuta's terms, and at least in terms of the translations that we have, Furuta pictures dragon as a fallopian tube, or a oviduct, I don't know how you pronounce that word, which is a fallopian tube. Now, if you don't know what a fallopian tube is, bit of anatomy lesson, go Google it. It resides in females, obviously, but basically it's a tube through which a ovum or egg passes from an ovary. To simplify that yet again, the passageway from the ovaries to the outside of the body is known as the oviduct. In female mammals, this passageway is known as the uterine tube, fallopian tube. To give birth, that is literally how Furuta depicts dragon, a fallopian tube, which is very, very bizarre, but it makes so much more sense now. Rize was born. She was incubated in this egg, and she was birthed from this tube, from dragon. So it just kind of makes sense that dragon itself, logistically, a fallopian tube, which is very, very weird to say. You never would have thought about it, but the fact that Ishida has brought more closure to this situation is very interesting, and I actually really appreciate that there's more closure on dragon in itself, right? Because not only do we find out about dragon, we also find out about the sentient Kagane beings and their purpose of turning humans into ghouls, which is the biggest thing right now. It's the craziest thing, right? So these are the words from Ishida himself. I'm just going to quote it, and I quote, "These so-called bastard children will devour humans and carry their energy back to Dragon. The Dragon will store that energy and use it to birth new children. And if you try and kill these monsters, you'll release their poison and simply increase their numbers. What will ever happen to humanity? Don't give up, kids." So we found out the process of Dragon. Dragon gives birth to sentient Carnegie beings. Sentient Carnegie beings turn humans into ghouls through blood transfusion, like HIV poison is what they call it. The reason why I mentioned the skin contact between blood and how that would seep into the human body and why I call it a disease is because Faruta called it a poison, and that's kind of how poison works. Like if you drop poison on your skin, it's not gonna matter, you're still fucked. Just because your skin's there doesn't mean shit. It's gonna seep into your skin, seep into your bloodstream, and you're still fucked overall. Hence why I kind of focused that idea on blood contact onto the human body. Sentient Carnegie beings take these said humans that have turned into ghouls back to Dragon. Dragon absorbs it, gives birth to more children. An endless cycle. Endless cycle. Where does Rize come into this? Still don't know. That is still left out, which is very interesting because Rize is the big bad wolf of this situation. She is the specifically created character, which there is still no explanation on how she is specifically created to a certain style, to a certain look, to a certain age. I'm hoping Ishida gives us a little bit more information about that whole Rize situation in the upcoming chapters. But from there we move to the Kaneki Yuri situation, which is also very important because Seiko, unfortunately, has been absolutely copped in this chapter. She has obviously absorbed a large amount in the previous chapters of this poison, which we're just going to call it poison at this point. So the ROS is very aggravated in her body right now. It's happened at an extreme rate, and we have this massive tumor, this ROS structure, coming out of her face. At this point, she's fucked. Ultimately, they get jumped by the sentient Carnegie beings, and this is where we see Kaneki shine. As much as Seiko is in a very dire situation right now because she's extremely ill, they're not really sure on how they can fix people, let alone Seiko, and Kaneki shines. For the first time in quite a long time, he has finally come out to play because he is fed up. He is absolutely over it, and this was emotional. This is a very big thing for Carnegie. Like, he has just witnessed absolutely all this shit happen that he was a part of. He was a part of this whole ordeal, right? And he was so nervous. He was so scared to help protect Yuri and Seiko when these sentient Carnegie beings rocked up. To the point where Seiko was going to sacrifice herself, mind you, because she said it was already too late. You know, we see this tumor coming out of Seiko's face, and she said, "Nah, you guys leave. I'll stay behind. I don't want you to get poisoned." That was emotional. Kaneki didn't take that. He's like, nah, I've done all this. I don't want to go out of control, but if I do, so be it. I'm sick of not being able to help anyone. And he just explodes. The panel work for Kaneki in this chapter when he releases his Kagane is unreal. It's out of this world. And mind you, Kaneki has completely changed. I don't know what he had just released right now from his body, but it has such a weird effect on him, right? Because when he releases his Kagane and absolutely obliterates all of these sentient Kagane beings, comes back to him, and yet his body is completely healed. Well, not his body, but his hands are completely healed. That is crazy. Like, his hands have just instantly healed. They've regrown. Now, what is this from? There's one of two things is what this is from. Early stages, right? Early thoughts. One is that it's from the poison that Kaneki is ingesting from the sentient Kagane beings, and somehow the internal organs, because Kimi does mention this when Kaneki goes back with Seiko and Yuri, that the organs are somehow utilizing the sentient Kagane blood, or dragon's blood, or whatever, which is highly contagious, if you will, poisonous, and somehow regulating in Kaneki's body with these new organs, which is allowing him to heal super quickly. Very, very big thing. Now, that's one way you can kind of picture it. The other way is the fact that he just needs RC cells. That's a more simplistic version of it, but you get the drift. I assume that Kaneki was meant to be a sentient Kagane being, that Kaneki himself was meant to be a big monster, a child of dragon. And the reason why I mention this is because technically, if you did cut Kaneki in half, if you did try and kill Kaneki, if you came in contact with his blood, it would most likely cause the ROS, the aggressive poison, whatever, into another human being, into another ghoul or whatever. It would have most likely the same effect as the sentient Kagane beings, which is pretty scary if you think about it. It's good for Kaneki in the way that he can potentially heal himself fully and become extremely powerful, but in the long term, he's also extremely dangerous in a lot of different ways. Now, I'm very excited for Ishida to explain the organs a little bit more and how they're filtrating these RC cells and how it's allowing him to, I guess, use these RC cells to his advantage and instantly turn his hands back to normal. That is the power of these RC cells, mind you. That showcases how aggressive these RC cells are. They're ridiculous. Kaneki's hands were completely fucked to that extent, and they're instantly healed. That's incredible. So I'm very excited for Ishida to kind of push down that direction and showcase a little bit more of that. We do also get the massive reunion between Kaneki and Hide, which even throughout all of this, even with the heartbreaking moment of Seiko having this tumor grow out her face and Yuri also starting to show slight symptoms of it, the Kaneki and Hide reunion was emotional. It really was. It was so impactful. This has been a long time coming. This has been ridiculously long time. 3-4 years probably. I want to say 4 years. 160 plus chapters we have been waiting for some sort of recognition and saying that, is Hide alive? And when we find out Hide is alive, it's like, fuck, now we need to have a reunion, and this is it. We finally got it. We've even got the face reveal of Hide in this chapter, which is grim. It's very grim. Kaneki done a lot of damage. It's kind of exactly how people pictured it. Kind of looks like Kaneki's mask, if you will. Mouth is basically just all fucked up. His teeth are fucked up to an extent, and everything's just scarred and tissued over. It's grim. This is very impactful. This is a very big thing for Kaneki, a big moment, because from here he wants to obviously help. He wants to go forward with everyone. He wants to allow people to help him. He wants to help the human race. He wants to destroy everything what's happening now and bring everything back home. And he knows he can't do it by himself anymore. Just the reunion between Hide and Carnegie was incredible. Like I can't even put it into words just because I've been waiting for it for so long. And I know a lot of people won't feel the same way, but this is extremely impactful. Mind you, Carnegie has used Hide as a massive progressional point, a mental stability, whatever you want to call it, for the longest of time. And there's so much guilt since that accident happened. It riddled Carnegie throughout the story. The recent chapter, there was so much guilt. Even in this chapter, there is still so much guilt, but he's finally come face to face with that nightmare. He's finally come face to face with the person that has saved him so many times without actually being there. It's incredible. It really is. With this reunion, with everything that has happened in this chapter, this has sparked the uprise. This is the beginning of the end, or the beginning of part 3, I should say. Carnegie is finally willing to go above and beyond, not by himself anymore. He's going to take all the help he can get and work together because he is sick of not being able to do anything. The question I have now is Carnegie going to be a threat to the world itself? There are so many different reasons why Carnegie could be a threat. The fact that these internal organs are able to cipher and filtrate these extremely aggressive and poisonous RC cells just leads me to believe that he was meant to be one. He was meant to be a sentient Carnegie being. Keeping Carnegie alive, and I know no one wants to hear this in this incredible chapter, but keeping Carnegie alive, if he is a massive threat, if there is an opportunity for a viral outbreak to happen because of him, is not going to be a thing. They're not going to keep him alive. They may lock him up. I guess you can kind of do it like that, but there is stuff going on with Carnegie right now regarding his own body, the RC cells that are tailoring his lifespan, that are tailoring his journey, his story, and where it could easily potentially end. And however Ishida takes that route, whether he keeps Carnegie alive, whether he makes him immortal, whether he turns him into a big bad abomination, ticking time bomb waiting to explode, whether he is a threat to the human race in itself, I'm excited and I have full faith in Ishida to take it in an incredible direction and tell us a incredible story. So that's basically it. That's all I've got. I don't want to make this video obnoxiously too long, but there is a lot in this chapter. I'll have a lot of videos up this week talking about individual pieces from this week's chapter, and so look forward to it. With that being said, I'm actually going to end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.